So today, guys, we are going to be taking a look at a build I decided to throw around the chill out mask, because if you haven't heard, in that last update that they just did, that little patch, that small patch that they did 2 days ago on Tuesday, well, guess what? They fixed the chill out mask. Yes, so the chill out mask now has the Gila bonus, which it was supposed to have always. And if you watch any of my videos, I talked about it a long time ago. So now you actually can get the 1 piece. You can actually stack up a 2 piece, 3 piece, and get those bonuses unlocked. But we're going to be using it with the 1 piece, because the 1 piece, what does it do? It actually gives us 5% armor. And with this build, we have a ton of armor. As you guys can see, every time we pick up a trophy, we're gaining a ton of armor. And the only way that is possible is if we are running a ton of armor. And you can see, even with so much armor, we're able to melt these enemies. And that's what I really like about this. This build has survivability. It still has damage, surprisingly. And that's just because the way we have this build spec'd out and how I have it. And with so much armor, you can just get blasted in the back and they still can't do nothing, right? I will tell you guys, sometimes it does feel like it's lacking a little bit of damage, but that's because you're not getting all your procs going. If you can get those procs working together, you definitely have enough damage. But yeah, sometimes I feel like, man, I wish I had just a little bit more damage. But as you can see, we were able to clear out the first half of this control point pretty easy. So let's get into the build. So what makes this build so cool is the fact that we have a ton of armor at 1.9 million armor. We have some nice armor on kill with 193,000. And then we have that insane amount of armor regeneration, 124,000. And that's why this build is so much fun to use. And you can run it a lot of different ways. But we're actually using it with the chill out mask. And I'll show you guys how we have this build broken down. So for the mask, we are running the chill out mask. This is the mask that you guys got from the holiday event. Now, the reason why we're using this is because they finally buffed it. So it's actually worth using now. It wasn't really worth using back in the day, but if you're trying to build a tank build, it actually fits in pretty good, because the Gila Guard gives you that 5% total armor, and then we're able to stack armor on the core attribute, and then we have 3 critical hit damage rolls on here. We have 1 critical hit damage and then 2 critical hit damage mods. So we're getting 36% critical hit damage from this mask alone, with the 170,000 armor and the 5% total armor. So it's actually a really good piece to run with this build, and I'm actually having a ton of fun running it this way to give me a little bit more armor on this build. For the chest, we are running the Hunter Killer chest. Now, you remember, you guys have to do the 13 Hunter mask in New York City to get this. Now, this has 10% status effects, 1% armor regen, because we are going to be running a 2-piece golden gear. Now we have armor on here, 170,000. We have some armor regen on here, and that's why we have that high armor regen on this build. And we have critical hit damage roll, and then we have a critical hit damage mod. And then obviously we have the talent Perfect Intimidate, while you have bonus armor. It amplifies total weapon damage by 40% with enemies within 10 meters. And with this build, we're going to be that close because we're running a shotgun and SMG, and I'll show you my weapons in just a few. So for our holster, we are running the Bellstone armor. We are running a 1 piece for that 1% armor regen. We have 170,000 armor on here. We have 6% crit chance and 12% critical hit damage. Now we have the Emperor's Guard knee pads, and this is going to give us 20% skill duration. It's going to give us 170% armor. It's going to give us 1% armor regen, and then we have critical hit damage rolled on here. Now the Murakami Emperor's Guard knee pads are the only knee pads. You can only get these in the DZ or from the DZ vendors. So I believe this week, I think this week they did have some for sale. You have to double check. But yeah, we have armor regen from that 1%, and then I rolled critical hit damage on there. Now for our second piece of golden gear, these are the gloves. So this gives us 1% armor regen, right? Because we're running a 2-piece. So we have armor on here. We have an armor regen roll, which you could either take that off because we definitely have enough on here, or you roll critical hit damage, but we have critical hit chance, and I decided to keep that armor regen on there because we're hitting hard enough to really get through these enemies. And the survivability with this build with having more armor regen is actually a lot of fun. And to top it off, we have the Memento backpack, and that's why you saw that a ton of armor regen, right? Because that is at a full 30 stack, and I'll explain that in a second. So we have weapon damage on here, 15%. We have 170% armor. We have 1 skill tier. We have critical hit damage mod, and then we have kill confirm. So remember, when we have a full 30 stack, we have 30% weapon damage, 30% skill efficiency, and 3% armor regen. Now you pair that with all the other armor regen we have on this build, and that's why we have so much, because we have high armor and then we have a ton of armor regen. Now remember, every time I pick up a trophy 2 on top of that, I get 5% weapon damage, 60% bonus armor, which is a ton of armor, right? And then we get 5% skill efficiency. That's why with this build, once I get 1 kill, then I don't have to have my shield out the whole time. But I'll tell you why I do proc my shield a lot, and you'll see in a second, because of the talent on this build. So for the weapon, we are running the SIG MPX. Now you guys can run whatever SMG you want, pick one. I recommend something that has a little bit more higher damage and not that fast of RPM, because you want to put out that damage, that base damage. You want to have a pretty nice high base damage, so that way when you do get that amplified damage from the chest piece, it actually helps this out. So the SIG actually has some pretty solid regular base damage with only 1 red, 82,000, 850 RPM, not bad in a 50 round mag. We have SMG damage, crit chance, 10% damage to targets out of cover, and then we have in sync on here. Hitting an enemy grants 15% skill damage. Using a skill or damaging an enemy with a skill grants 15% weapon damage. So that's going to give us 30% weapon damage. Now, ideally, if I wasn't running the Banshee Pulse, well then I could just run a Striker Drone and I can constantly have that damage up. But I am running a Banshee Pulse, so that's what I was using the shield for, because every time I use it, proc it, take it off, pocket, it will proc this, right? So that's 30% extra weapon damage. Now I do have crit chance all throughout this modded, plus the 20 round mag. Now for my secondary, the Scorpio, obviously it's a game changer. You put this on there as your backup, it's amazing. Now if you don't want to run the Scorpio, you could actually run the Lady Death and run a different shotgun if you want, and this is actually a really good. But remember, with the Lady Death, you need to make sure you're constantly moving, because it has that talent breathe free. You can run either one you want. They both run good. I just want to switch it up a little bit and run the SIG MPX. But this is how I have the build set up, and you can see that I am running the Banshee Pulse, and that kind of disrupts them, allows me to really not have to pop out my shield as much. And then when I do start firing at me, that's when I can use my shield. And remember, like I said, the shield is there to help me proc in sync, because that's going to allow me to gain 30% extra skill damage, right? Because remember, if I use a skill and if I'm doing weapon damage, I actually get 30%, right? Because that's 2 at the same time. So definitely a great way to gain that extra damage, along with having Intimidate, perfect Intimidate, that 40% extra damage, and just being able to be so tanky makes the survivability of this build pretty amazing. And I'm telling you guys, I was having a ton of fun running it. I was doing heroic control points pretty easy, just like I would do it if I had all reds, right? So that's what I loved about it. Usually I am running the Hunter's Fury build, but today I decided to switch it up a little bit and see if I could build something that had a lot more armor and had a lot of survivability with that armor regen, and still be able to use the chill out mask, because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to build something around it. And this thing, I'm telling you guys, I really feel like this mask will have a lot of different combinations, especially if they ever buff the Gila piece, right? If they ever buff the Gila brand set, holy, imagine if they did 10% extra armor. That would actually be a really good slot, and you would actually see a lot of people run this more often, because the 5%, yeah, it's okay, but imagine if they buff that a little bit. But yeah, I tell you, had a lot of fun with it. Having that much armor, it's been a while since I made a build with that much armor and have this much survivability, and you're able to really still clear content pretty quick. So if you guys have any questions on the build, use the comment section down below. But we're gonna wrap it up here, guys. Appreciate the support, appreciate the love. I'll see you in the next one. Nothing but skills out.